so you've been seeing it all on your TikTok feed, on Instagram, on YouTube, all over, Twitter, X, whatever. You've been thinking to yourself, it's 2025, and you know what? I'm finally ready to make that journey to Thailand. I'm right there with you, right? I have been to Thailand twice, and 2025 will make my third time where I'm actually doing a extended stay there. So in this video, I'm going to be talking about what you should know before you go to Thailand. I want to make sure you're in the right position so by the time you go to Thailand, the situation will be most beneficial towards you. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is the visa requirements. So depending on what country you're from would determine if a visa is needed and what type of visa there is. So generally speaking, if you're from the United States, you can go to Thailand for typically up to like 30 days with no issues. They do have visa upon arrivals, but that's only for certain countries. So what I recommend, depending on your country, UK, Australia, Japan, USA, depending on where you're coming from, to check your local embassy as far as the requirements. But the good thing is, like I said, for certain countries, they do have the visas upon arrival, so you don't have to predate everything before you go over there. However, if you do come from one of these countries that requires to set everything up before, keep that in mind because you would hate to have to buy the ticket and then get turned around. I had a situation like that in Vietnam about 2-3 years ago, and long story short, I originally was planning to go to Vietnam, but because of the visa situation, they was like, hey, once I got to the airport, they was like, nah, you got to do a visa ahead of time. And it was Chinese New Year, so it's like all the embassies were closed. So that's another thing. If you're going to do it during Chinese New Year, be careful, because even though Thailand is obviously not China, because of the Chinese New Year, that can shut down the local government buildings. So the next thing I would like to talk about when it comes to what you should know before Thailand is the weather. So when you see the Instagram videos or the YouTube videos, it looks like, oh, good time. Yeah, everybody's vibing out. One thing they don't tell you is about that weather. It gets intense.
Y'all probably thought I was playing about that second one. I got to hit this again.
Intense.
Y'all probably thought I was playing about that second one. I got to hit this again.
I've lived in a lot of places, been to a quarter of all the states, spent a lot of time in Las Vegas where it gets up to 115, 120 degrees in the summer. And I thought that was hot. But when I got to Thailand, I'm like, this heat is disrespectful. I'm not complaining. I'm just giving y'all the insight so you can be best prepared for the heat when you get there. If you look at my previous videos in Thailand, you notice a large percent of them were filmed indoors. Why is that? That is because of the weather conditions. So I had people writing me in the comments, hey, we want you to do this, or we want you to film this type of video. I'm open to criticism, but at the same time, when I was in Thailand, the humidity is insane. That's the thing. So it's not necessarily the direct heat on you from the sun. It's a combination between the humidity and the sun, and the fact that sometimes you don't have that breeze coming in and out. You know what I'm saying? So the best times to go if you're trying to be as cool as possible when it comes to temperature wise would typically be between December and like February-ish. That's about that 3-month range is probably the best range, because what happens is March is still an okay time, right? That's when I plan on going back, is in March. So about 3 months from now, more or less. But here's the thing about March weather. If you're going to go in March, it is strongly recommended that you stay as south as possible. And I'll tell you why. So we're talking about weather, right? And I talk about humidity and heat. There's also something else, and that is called burning season. So you can Google it. You notice when certain Asian countries, I had a buddy hit me up like, hey, I'm about to take this flight to China and then maybe go to Thailand. What do you think? He told me the days. I'm like, certain countries in Asia, Thailand being one of them specifically, around that time, the pollution could be the worst. One of the major contributing factors for the pollution to be bad around March time in Thailand is something they call burning season. So if you're looking at plane tickets and you're wondering why is it so much cheaper around this time period, right? So burning season is where a lot of farmers, for what I've been told and what the internet says, is that a lot of trees will be burned, a lot of landfill will be burned by the farmers in the north part of Thailand, but this can come down a little further south as far as the pollution in the air from the burning, right? So if you've been in California, you know what I'm talking about as far as you see forest getting burned way in Northern California, but you're being Southern California, you still see the smoke. That's kind of like the effect. Maybe not as dramatic, hopefully. This will be my first time in March, so we're going to see. But that is something to be careful when it comes to traveling in March. Now, another thing you want to worry about is something called monsoon season, right? Or raining season. So those monsoons are common, but it comes in short bursts. So typically the rainy season is like June to October, right? Now, in my videos as well, you see a couple clips of the rain. The good thing about the rain in Thailand, I will say, even though it happens a lot, especially during certain seasons, is when it does rain, it's very short. So here in the States, if it rains, it may rain for like a whole day, half a day, quarter a day. I've never seen rain in the States. I mean, it's very rare. I've seen it, but it's super rare where it lasts like 2 minutes, 5 minutes. That's kind of how it is in Thailand from my experience. Most of the times it rained in Thailand, it would rain for maybe 10, 15 minutes. You can't even be mad at it, honestly. When I first seen it, I'm like, oh, no. Then my friend was telling me, just wait a little bit. It'll go away. Sure enough, 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes later, it was already gone. But sometimes it comes in spurts. So like 5 minutes, goes away for 10 minutes. 5 minutes, goes away for an hour. It comes back for 10 minutes. It goes like that. So you got to be careful with that. You might want to time your day around that as far as what you plan on navigating. But the next thing I want to let you guys know is consumer electronics. So when you're in Thailand, you're going to see that, well, not just consumer electronics, consumer goods, I should say. But first I want to start off with electronics. So you'll see my laptop charger, right? It was damaged. But I'm like, I'm not going to buy a new one in the States. It's going to be cheaper in Thailand. That was my mentality. I'm like, I'm going to go to Thailand and get it for cheaper. Why would I, you know? I got there, went to the Apple store, surprised at the price. I did a translation. I wish I would have clipped the video, but I did using the the iPhone calculator. And now, because they got the new feature where you can see how much it costs. So I look at the cost, I'm like, I think it was like $130 or something. I'm like, this doesn't make sense. I can get the same product in the States for like $40. And then my friend told me, yeah, when it comes to Apple, it's a little more expensive. It's kind of considered like luxury out here. I'm like, oh, okay, I didn't know that. So I just went to like a little flea market where they make the cheap versions made in China. It's like a knockoff version. I think I got it for like $35. But be careful with that because you never know what's installed in that software, right? Or that hardware. It could be spying on you, whatever. It's a knockoff version, so you gotta be super careful. Now, I also went to many malls when I was in Thailand. I noticed, I'm looking at some Nikes. I'm like, I'm gonna get fresh out here, you know. It's gonna be cheaper. I had that mentality. I went to the malls and I was surprised. Nike Air Force Ones, Nike Air Max, Nike Shocks, Adidas, all these name brands you love is more pricey in Thailand. So I'm telling you this is if you have the idea that you're gonna get some name brand stuff or stuff that's globally known for cheaper, think again. It can be cheap. It can be actually more expensive in Thailand. But the things that are cheaper is the food, which brings me to my next point. You can get different cuisines in Thailand for cheaper. Now, if you're going to buy Italian, Turkish, French, American, Japanese food, it's going to be more pricier than the local Thai food. Makes sense, right? But even the pricier stuff is cheaper. than the States. It's cheaper than UK. It's cheaper than most developed countries, first world developed countries, Western countries. I remember going to the mall buying like Japanese food for like $12, and it's like a full set. They got multiple courses, soups, meats. It's like a whole arrangement they got going on. Korean barbecue. I paid for me and a friend Korean barbecue. I think it was like 20 USD. Out here, that you'll be lucky if you can get one person for that price. It's more like 30, 35, 40, right? So that's another thing you gotta be cognizant of. The other thing I want to talk about is the language. So I've been told about 10, 15, 20 years ago, English wasn't a thing in Thailand. That's why people would prefer the Philippines to retire. They like, yo, we like Thailand more personally, but I mean, they speak English in the Philippines, so I'm just gonna retire there. Now, English is becoming mainstream in Thailand.
Toilet.
Okay, thank you. American culture is becoming more adopted in Thailand. They listen to the same music as us, dress similar. You're gonna assimilate very well if you're from a Western country. I was in Bangkok and I didn't need to know any Thai the whole time. Even my Uber drivers or my Grab, they got Grab out there, you know, say little phrases to them here and there. Hey, blah, blah, blah. And they can understand. When I checked in at the Airbnb, they can understand. When I'm at the airport, they can understand. When I'm at the mall, there's someone there. There's a worker at that store, at least one or two or a few who speak English. You're not going to be lost. Like, you're not going to be like when I was in Turkey. Turkey was the most difficult country to navigate when it came to language barriers because no one spoke English, even in the main cities. You're not going to have that problem in Thailand, assuming you're in Bangkok or Pattaya. I can't speak about Phuket and all the other places. I haven't been there yet, and the information I have on there is somewhat limited. But if you're in Bangkok, Pattaya, you'll be fine. You don't got to worry about learning another language. Another thing I want to talk about, the SIM cards. Don't get got with the SIM cards. A lot of people, they arrive, they either buy a SIM card in their home country because they're like, yo, I want to make sure I'm super good while I'm there. Or they buy one at the airport. Oh, I just landed on the airport. I need a SIM card immediately. I don't want to get stranded. You don't got to do all that. You land at the airport. You can connect to their free Wi-Fi. From there, you can order you a Grab, take a train, whatever's the cheapest route for you. If you want to be cheap, you can take the train and buses. If you don't mind paying a couple dollars, you can do Grab, which is what I do because it's convenience, you know what I'm saying? You can go to your nearest 7-Eleven and you can buy a SIM card for like $3, $2. It's super cheap. You don't need to get ripped off at the airport. And that's how a lot of these Asian countries are, personally. Japan, Malaysia, Singapore, Thailand, all four of those countries that I just came back from, same thing. You see one price for the SIM card at the airport, same like the currency machine, because they know like, oh, people are desperate. You see one price, you're like, nah, let me go to 7-Eleven. It's a fraction of the cost. It's pennies. It's pennies. And the further you go away from the city center, the cheaper it could potentially be. Hit you a 7-Eleven, get the currency, you'll be good. Another thing I want to warn you about. There is, how do I say this politically correct? There is a culture of people that may want to date you exclusively because of your country of origin. So this is not something that's Thailand specific as much as it is traveling to different places and they perceive you to have money and or status specific. If you're from the UK, Australia, USA, Canada, somewhere that has a global influence and has a somewhat more stable economy or the illusion of a greater currency, people are going to want to be associated with you exclusively for that. So you have to be careful when it comes to dealing with people, whether it's dating, just having general conversations with, making friends with, etc. There's an element of that in Thailand from my experience and from the experience of others who I spoke to, where certain people will want to be around you, associated with you, and or date you for that fact. These are just some quick little facts I gave to y'all. I can go in depth about this. I can talk about this forever. Maybe I'll make a part 2. Matter of fact, actually, I'll probably make a part 2. But any topics you want me to discover, to go over, something you feel like I missed, you got questions, etc., make sure to leave them in the comment section, and I can include those in part 2 of this video. And make sure you go ahead, like, comment, subscribe, and also share. Any points you want me to talk about more in the next one, let me know. I'll throw it in there. I'm considering talking about the transportation, the safety, getting around, general things like that. But I want to say I appreciate y'all's time, and before you know it, we'll be back in Thailand. Peace.